Section 2, Athens and Sparta. Objectives: learn how people lived in ancient Sparta. 2. Discover some results of the Persian invasion of Greece. 3. Understand the conflicts that the Athenian Empire faced. Key terms: Sparta, a city-state in ancient Greece. Helots, in ancient Sparta, the term for slaves who were owned by the state. Peloponnesian War, 431 to 404 BC. A war fought between Athens and Sparta in ancient Greece. Almost every other Greek city-state was involved in the war. Plague, a widespread disease. Blockade, an action taken to isolate the enemy and cut off its supplies. Page 206. The boy stood still and straight beside his companions as their trainer approached. "You," the trainer barked. "Are you sick? Don't think you'll get out of sword practice. Why are you holding your belly? Hiding something?" The trainer gave the boy's cloak a sharp tug. It fell to the ground, freeing a fox that streaked off into the underbrush. The boy fell to the ground. His cloak was blood red. His side was shredded with deep cuts and bites. The boy had stolen the fox for his dinner. Hidden beneath the cloak, the fox had clawed and bit him. Later, the boy died from his wounds. He had endured terrible pain without giving any signs of his distress. To the Spartans, this was the sign of true character. The Spartan story of the boy and the fox may be true, or it might just be a legend. However, it tells us much about the people of Sparta, a city-state in southern Greece. Page 207. Living in Sparta. Life in Athens was free and open, but life for the citizens of Sparta was just the opposite. Life in Sparta was harsh and even cruel. The Spartans themselves were tough, silent, and grim. Sparta's army easily equaled that of the Athens in the 400s BC. However, Sparta never came close to equaling Athens' other achievements. In its early days, Sparta was similar to other Greek cities. Then, in the 600s BC, wars inside and outside the city led to changes in the government and the way people lived. The changes turned Sparta into a powerful war machine. The city-state established one basic rule: always put the city's needs above your own. Early in its history, the Spartans conquered the land around their city. They turned the conquered people into helots, or slaves owned by the city-state of Sparta. Helots did all of the farm work on the land owned by Spartan citizens. This system left the Spartans free to wage war. However, the Helots far outnumbered the Spartans. Living in fear of a Helot revolt, the Spartans turned their city into an armed camp. They treated the Helots very harshly. Reading check. What type of people were the Spartans? Page 208. Growing up in Sparta. The life of every Spartan was in the hands of the government from birth. Only the healthiest children were raised because the Spartans wanted only the healthiest people in their city. Growing up male. Training began early. At 7, a Spartan boy left his home to live in barracks with other boys. His training continued for the next 13 years. By the age of 12, a boy had spent long hours practicing with swords and spears. He had only one cloak and a thin mat to sleep on. He could hardly live on the small amount of food he was given, so he was urged to steal. The Spartans thought that a boy who learned to steal would know how to live off the land during a war. However, if the boy were caught stealing, he was severely punished. Boys were expected to bear pain, hardship, and punishment in silence. Through this rigid discipline, Spartan youths became excellent soldiers. When he became 20, a young man officially became a soldier. Men remained soldiers until their 60th birthdays. At the age of 30, a man was able to take his place in the assembly, a council consisting of all the male citizens born in Sparta. As in Athens, only non-slave males were considered citizens in Sparta. The council approved the decisions made by the council of elders, who, in turn, acted as advisors to the king. Page 209. Growing up female. Like the boys, girls also trained and competed in wrestling and spear throwing. No one expected girls to become soldiers. However, Spartans did believe that girls who grew up strong and healthy would have strong, healthy children. Therefore, unlike other Greek women, Spartan women were trained to exercise and build up their bodies. Spartan women had a somewhat better life than women in other Greek city-states. They were allowed to own land and even take some part in business. However, Like their Athenian sisters, they had to obey the males, the fathers, husbands, or brothers, in their lives. Because the men were so involved in military matters, some Spartan women took over larger responsibilities, such as the running of their farms or estates. Spartan attitudes. The Spartans did not mingle with other Greeks. They were not allowed to travel. They looked down on the desire for wealth and on those engaged in trade. They lacked the interest in the arts that the Athenians and some other Greeks cultivated. However, Spartan warriors were known for their skill and bravery. The Spartan fighting force played a key role in the Greek wars against the Persians, a people who lived across the Aegean Sea, east of Greece. Reading check. What was the Spartan attitude about trade? Page 210. The Persians invade. Much of Greek history tells of wars the Greeks fought amongst themselves. Near the beginning of the 400s BC, a new threat loomed, the growing might of Persia. The Greeks put aside their differences and joined forces to defend their peninsula. The expanding Persian Empire. Cyrus the Great had founded the Persian Empire in the mid-500s BC. Cyrus and the rulers who followed him extended the original empire. By 520 BC, the Persians had gained control of the Greek colonies on the west coast of Asia Minor. Battle at Marathon. In the fall of 490 BC, a force including thousands of Persians landed in Greece. The Persian soldiers gathered at Marathon, about 25 miles north of Athens. The Athenians hastily put together a small army. However, the Persians outnumbered them by at least 2 to 1. For several days the armies stared tensely at each other across the plain of Marathon. Then, without warning, the Athenians rushed the Persians, who were overwhelmed by the furious attack. By one account, at the end of the battle, the Athenians had killed 6,400 Persians, but had lost only 192 soldiers themselves. The Persian losses may have been exaggerated. However, it is true that in a short time this tiny state had defeated the giant that had come to destroy it. Reading check. What happened during the battle at Marathon? Page 211. Conflict and the Athenian Empire. More battles with Persia followed. As a common enemy, Persia distracted the Greek city-states from fighting one another. Briefly united, Greece drove away the Persians. Their victory over the Persians increased the Greeks' sense of their own importance. They believed that the gods had favored them and had therefore influenced the outcome of the wars. Athens emerged from the war as the most powerful city-state in Greece. Its influence spread over much of eastern Greece. Athens joined other city-states in the Delian League, named after the island of Delos, where the league's treasury was kept. In time, however, these cities were treated more like subjects of Athens and less like allies. Athens came to dominate the league and used it to create its own empire. Ironically, while Athens was expanding its empire and forcing other city-states to bow to its will, Athens came to champion political freedom at home. Athens did support democratic groups within the other city-states, but its focus was on freedom for its own people. The years following the Persian Wars were the golden age of Athens that you read about in Chapter 6. Reading check. Why did Greeks believe they had won their wars with Persia? Page 212. Sparta and Athens at war. Athens may have been a democracy at home, but it began to act unfairly toward other city-states. At first, allies of Athens had paid tribute to the city-state for protection, in case the Persians caused more trouble. Later, Athens moved the treasury from Delos to Athens, and used the money that was supposed to help defend its allies to build the Parthenon and to finance other projects. The Peloponnesian War. The people of these city-states began to fear and resent Athens' power. They looked to Sparta, which had not joined the alliance, to protect them. To counter the Delian League, Sparta formed the Peloponnesian League, named after Peloponnesus, the southern Greek peninsula where Sparta was located. In 431 BC, Sparta and its allies fought against Athens and its allies. Thus began the Peloponnesian War, a conflict between Athens and Sparta that lasted for 27 years. Even though Athens had a fine navy and more wealth than the other city-states, its geography was a great disadvantage in the war. Sparta, located inland, could not be attacked from the sea. However, Sparta had only to march north to attack Athens by land. When Sparta invaded Athens, the statesman Pericles, whom you read about in chapter 6, let the people from the surrounding countryside move inside the city walls. The overcrowded conditions led to a plague, or widespread disease. By the time the plague ended 5 years later, about 1/3 of the people of Athens had died from it. Among the dead was Pericles. The power struggles of those who sought to take Pericles' place also undermined the city's government. The fall of Athens. Athens never recovered from its losses during the plague. To make matters worse, Sparta allied itself to its former common enemy to have the advantage of the Persian navy. In 405 BC, with their new allies, the Spartans staged a blockade, an action taken to isolate the enemy and cut off its supplies. The Spartans surrounded and closed the harbor where Athens received food shipments. Starving and beaten, the Athenians surrendered in 404 BC. The victorious Spartans knocked down the walls of Athens. They destroyed its navy and decimated its empire. Athens never again dominated the Greek world. Reading check. What did Greek city-states do to overcome oppression by Athens?